Let a human be created, one who can bear the yoke of the gods. Teach mankind the labors of the world. Epic of Atrahasis, Tablet 1, Ancient Mesopotamia. Could it be that humanity's progress was influenced by visitors from other worlds? Enki, a god of ancient Mesopotamia, is said to have passed down fundamental knowledge for civilization, such as music, law, and agriculture. Oannes, a strange being from ancient Babylon, is described as a teacher of every kind of art and science. According to the Book of Enoch, the fallen angels taught humans various forbidden skills. Even in the Amazon rainforest, there are legends of a figure clad in metallic garments who shared wisdom about medicine, hunting, and building homes. Are these merely myths created to explain the origins of civilization? Or could they be distant memories of extraterrestrial visitors long forgotten over time? Next, we will explore the fascinating accounts from various cultures that describe the arrival of non-human beings to our world, imparting skills and knowledge. We will also address essential questions about this possible ancestral contact. Why did these beings leave? Could there truly be a planet where they once lived? This idea may sound extraordinary, but it deserves to be examined with an open mind, in search of evidence. What you choose to accept or dismiss is up to you. You must draw your own conclusions. If you believe you already hold the absolute truth, then you have stopped seeking it. Chrysippus of Soli. Enki, master of ancient Mesopotamia. Praise be to Enki, the highly acclaimed lord who governs all arts and crafts, who renders judgment. Enki and the World Order is a Sumerian poem written nearly 5,000 years ago, recounting how Enki, the Anunnaki god of wisdom, granted knowledge to humanity and structured society. Enki bestows upon humankind the Me, divine powers that encompass arts, trades, laws, rituals, and essential knowledge for the advancement of civilization. According to modern archaeology, this myth symbolizes knowledge itself and supports the belief that the gods represent the foundation of social order. The development of Mesopotamian civilizations would have been a gradual process, not the result of outside intervention. However, some modern theories suggest that the Anunnaki were actual beings from other worlds, who created humankind and taught various skills. In later chapters, we will address the most intriguing questions about these gods. Before that, we will examine other stories of beings who descend to Earth, or appear mysteriously to share knowledge with different cultures. Ancestral flying vehicles. The Ramayana, an ancient Indian text, depicts moments when sages and divine beings offer vital teachings to human protagonists. Vishvamitra, a spiritual master, instructs them in advanced combat techniques, the use of divine weapons, and moral duty. In the Mahabharata, also from ancient India, Krishna is the universal teacher, guiding people on how to live and act. Drona and Parashurama are warrior instructors who impart martial skills and celestial weaponry. But the most astonishing aspect of the ancient Indian texts is the mention of the Vimanas, flying vehicles that traverse both sky and land. One famous example is the Pushpaka Vimana, described in Book 5 of the Ramayana. There shone the chariot, dazzling with an immeasurable wealth of precious stones and gold. It soared through the air, descending and rising at will. This Vimana could glide effortlessly across the sky and, in some stories, even travel through upper cosmic realms. It was capable of moving at a great speed and covering vast distances in a short time, with the ability to ascend, descend, or remain suspended over cities and forests. Historians explain that Vimanas symbolize the power of the gods and their effortless passage between heaven and earth. They often appear when a hero is rewarded by the gods, or when a deity descends to earth. Within the framework of the ancient astronaut hypothesis, Vimanas might have belonged to an extraterrestrial civilization that visited our planet thousands of years ago. Were the Vimanas a lost advanced technology, or perhaps spacecraft of alien origin? What is certain is that no metallic remains have ever been found to confirm their existence. The being of the Amazon. Bep Kororoti is a mythical figure of the Kayapo people, who live in the Xingu River region of the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. According to their story, one day a being descended amid strong winds, thunder, and a dazzling light. He wore strange clothing, described as metallic or similar to armor, and carried a kind of staff capable of emitting energy. At first, the villagers were frightened, unsure whether he was a hostile creature or a spirit. Over time, the newcomer began to interact with the community, teaching them skills such as house building, hunting techniques, farming, and medicine. After a while, Bep Kororoti left the village, disappearing in a flash of light and ascending into the skies. From an anthropological perspective, this story is seen as a way to explain the origins of the Kayapo's technologies, social customs, and essential knowledge. Other authors have interpreted it as evidence of an extraterrestrial visit. The shining outfit would be a spacesuit, the staff a technological tool, and the departure into the sky, the takeoff of a spacecraft. Chariots of fire in Alaska and Canada. Among the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, mainly the Inuit of Alaska, Greenland, and Canada, there is a legend that speaks of encounters with beings who came from the sky. They tell of chariots or sleds of fire that descend straight from the heavens, wrapped in a glow, landing near villages. Some stories describe humming sounds or complete silence, accompanied by lights before vanishing. One account comes from the coastal regions of the Canadian Arctic, where elders recall how a fire kayak once descended from the sky on a starry night, lighting up the tundra as if it were daytime. From inside emerged a tall being, cloaked in a shining mantle. He did not resemble the Inuit. His skin was pale, his eyes large and bright, and he spoke without moving his mouth. This being did not walk, but hovered slightly above the ground. Another story from the Yupik people of western Alaska tells how during a great storm, an intense light appeared in the sky, descending slowly, like a falling star. From the radiance emerged a humanoid figure, wrapped in light, who taught the village's ancestors how to preserve food, read the stars, and make proper offerings to maintain balance in the world. The visitor did not stay long. He rose again into his luminous canoe, which spun on its axis and shot upward until it disappeared into the firmament. Though these stories may sound unusual, they were documented by explorers like Knud Rasmussen, author of Intellectual Culture of the Igloolik Eskimos, and by anthropologists such as Anne Fiennap Riordan, who specializes in the indigenous peoples of Alaska. Anthropologists see these accounts as symbolic representations of natural forces. Yet it is striking how much these descriptions resemble modern reports of UFOs and alleged extraterrestrial beings. Tauta De Danann, Gods Who Descend. In the Book of Invasions, an ancient Irish text, it is told how the Tuatha De Danann arrived in mysterious dark clouds that covered Ireland for 3 days and 3 nights. After descending, they defeated the previous inhabitants in battle and claimed the land as their own. They are described as beings of great beauty, tall, radiating a kind of supernatural light, dressed in luxurious garments and carrying magical objects. They arrived as conquerors, but also as teachers and civilizers. Endowed with immense abilities, they controlled the weather, fertility, and atmospheric phenomena. Their powers included shape-shifting, healing wounds, and performing feats impossible for ordinary humans. They possessed advanced knowledge in music, poetry, craftsmanship, metallurgy, construction, and social organization. With the later arrival and invasion of the Milesians, the ancestors of historical Irish people, the Tuatha De Danann were defeated and retreated to live underground. What remains mysterious is the nature of these beings. Were they gods or civilizing heroes? their extraordinary abilities could be interpreted as the arrival of a people with superior technology, incomprehensible to prehistoric societies. From a historical perspective, the Tuatha De Danann may represent the force that transforms a wild land into an organized society. The bolder interpretation is that they were beings from other worlds, a real event that, over time, became a myth. Beings from the sky and vehicles in Africa. A fascinating case of possible extraterrestrial contact is found in the Dogon tribe of Mali, Africa. In The Pale Fox, a study published in 1965, Marcel Grial and Germaine Dieterlin described the mythology of this ethnic group, which mentions civilizing beings, the star Sirius A, and its companion star, Sirius B. Sirius A is the brightest star in the night sky, visible to the naked eye. Sirius B, however, is invisible without technology, first observed in 1862 using a telescope. If Sirius B cannot be seen without advanced tools, how could the Dogon tribe know of its existence? Some have proposed that the Dogon received this information from extraterrestrial visitors in the distant past. Another explanation is that the knowledge came from Western travelers during the colonial period. Moreover, Dogon mythology describes strange beings called the Nomo, who have a hybrid appearance between fish and human. They are considered entities whose mission is to bring order to human life. They are said to arrive on Earth from the sky in an ark or vehicle, resembling a large basket with a square base, decorated with symbols. For anthropologists, these beings are part of a myth explaining how the world began. They are said to come from the water, a vital resource closely linked to life. Other authors, such as Robert Temple, believe that the Nomo were beings who came from the Sirius star system. According to him, the Dogon could not have possessed such detailed astronomical knowledge without advanced technology. The Watchers in the Book of Enoch. This apocryphal text tells the story of a group of angels called the Watchers, who choose to descend to Earth and teach humans various forms of forbidden knowledge. It is said that around 200 Watchers decided to come down and act against God's will. They taught humanity how to forge weapons, study the stars, and practice occult arts. However, this knowledge corrupted mankind, leading to violence and moral decay. Some interpret the Watchers as symbols of external forces that bring about technological evolution too quickly, conveying the idea that humanity achieved certain advancements at the cost of its moral and spiritual integrity. Others have suggested that the fallen Watchers might have been extraterrestrial beings who shared knowledge and technology with humans. The Wanhina. They are sacred beings in the beliefs of the Aboriginal peoples of northwestern Australia, particularly in the Kimberley region. According to the worldview of these people, the Wandjina, were the spirits responsible for creating the earth, giving rise to plants, animals, and human beings themselves. Aboriginal stories recount that, after shaping the world, these beings merged with the land or ascended, leaving their marks on the stones. In the cave paintings of Kimberley, they are depicted with white faces, large dark eyes, sometimes without a mouth, and often surrounded by a halo. For Aboriginal communities, these are not mere artistic images, but sacred presences that inhabit the sites where they were painted. The Star People. These are legends and beliefs of Native American peoples such as the Lakota, Dakota, and Ojibwa, which tell how certain beings descended from the stars to share wisdom. They are described as tall, sometimes radiant, with pale luminous skin, as if reflecting the light of the night sky. In some accounts, their eyes are large and expressive, emanating wisdom and compassion. Other myths speak of figures draped in glowing robes, with long silver hair or even without distinct facial features, appearing as entities made of pure light. The Hopi say that these visitors were connected to certain constellations, like the Pleiades, and that their appearance changed depending on how they chose to reveal themselves to humans. At times, they took on humanoid shapes to interact with people, but in their original state, they could be ethereal, like shimmering shadows or golden winds. Are the Star People manifestations of cosmic energy, representations of natural forces, or beings from other worlds? Oannes, the teacher of ancient Babylon. Babylon, located in southern Mesopotamia, experienced an economic and cultural golden age around 4,000 years ago. It was there that myths arose, which shaped the history of ancient religions, such as the Tower of Babel, created to explain the diversity of languages. Another of these Babylonian tales is that of Oannes, a semi-divine figure who emerged from the sea to teach humanity every kind of art and science. According to the account of Berosus, a priest from the 3rd century BCE, Oannes had the body of a fish and the head of a man. During the day, he would rise from the waters of the Persian Gulf and share knowledge with the people of Mesopotamia. At night, he returned to the sea. This being is credited with introducing writing, mathematics, agriculture, architecture, law, and, in general, all the arts and sciences that laid the foundation of Mesopotamian civilization. Oannes' amphibious form symbolizes his ability to move between the aquatic world and the land, representing the transition from ignorance to civilization. One of the authors familiar with the Oannes myth was the astrophysicist Carl Sagan, who explored the possibility of extraterrestrial contact in antiquity in his book Intelligent Life in the Universe. According to Sagan, some ancient myths might have been inspired by real events, including encounters with external intelligences. However, he stressed that such ideas must be supported by solid evidence. His stance remained skeptical. He encouraged analysis with a critical mind and the rigorous application of the scientific method. Heavenly teachers of ancient Egypt. Several theorists have drawn parallels between the civilization of ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, speculating that the Anunnaki might have been the initiators of both cultures. In both Mesopotamia and Egypt, society was clearly structured, from the king or pharaoh at the top, followed by priests, artisans, and farmers, down to the slaves. The people of Mesopotamia and Egypt worshipped multiple gods, many of them associated with natural phenomena. Both cultures built monumental structures, the ziggurats in Mesopotamia and the pyramids in Egypt. Similarly, ancient Egypt produced myths that bear similarities to the Mesopotamian figures of the Oannes, particularly in the deities Thoth and Osiris. Thoth was regarded as the god who created hieroglyphic writing and the one who conveyed knowledge. He is a hybrid being with the head of an ibis or a baboon, a fusion of human wisdom and the supernatural. Osiris is the god who taught the Egyptians agriculture, granted them laws, and showed them how to live in society. He has a human body, although he is sometimes linked to the sacred bull Apis, or to the Oxyrhynchus fish. According to theories we will explore later, the Anunnaki came to ancient Egypt, helping with the construction of the pyramids and the development of advanced knowledge. Could the ancient Egyptians have received advanced knowledge from intelligent beings from other worlds? Archaeology maintains there is no such evidence of a connection between Egypt and Mesopotamia through ancestral extraterrestrial beings. It argues that these similarities arise from human nature, cultural exchanges, and ancient migrations. The flight of Etana. Ancestral space travel? Mesopotamian narratives not only tell of gods descending, but also of mortals ascending to the sky, sometimes with details that seem oddly technological. One notable example is the Akkadian tale of the legend of Etana, in which the king ascends to heaven riding a giant eagle sent by the god Shamash, searching for a magical plant. During this journey, Etana describes seeing the earth from above with striking precision. As he rises, he says, "The earth appeared like a hill, and the vast sea looked like a canal. I gazed, but I could no longer see the earth. My eyes could not find the sea." The apparent shrinking of the earth as he ascended has led some to wonder how an ancient author could conceive of such an almost space-like perspective. Literary experts argue that this is a poetic device, perhaps inspired by observations from great heights, such as mountain peaks, or simply by imagination. For proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, it represents the experience of a high-altitude flight, an early reference to an aerial vehicle. Ancient Mesopotamia and the Anunnaki. According to the ancient astronaut hypothesis, beings with unimaginable technology, the Anunnaki, arrived on this world 450,000 years ago. They descended upon Mesopotamia, founded cities, and created humans as a workforce to extract gold, which they supposedly needed to repair their planet's atmosphere, Nibiru. Around 4,000 years ago, after shaping empires and forever altering our destiny, they began their journey back to their home planet. This planet is said to follow a large elliptical orbit, drawing near to Earth every 3,600 years. Each time Nibiru approached, groups of Anunnaki would depart with the mined gold, while other groups would arrive to continue the extraction. In this way, the Anunnaki might have returned several times before their final departure. Thus, after being created, humans may have repeatedly witnessed their arrival and the appearance of their ships. It is worth asking, if the ancient Sumerians saw these vessels, how would they have understood and portrayed them in their art? The cuneiform writing system recorded everything from commercial transactions and legal codes to myths about gods. There are frequent descriptions of divine descents involving celestial chariots or shining vessels wrapped in storm-like brilliance. For instance, in the poem Hymn to Enlil, we read, Enlil who advances like a storm, whose radiance fills the heavens and the earth. In the descent of Inanna, it is written, She descended from heaven, clothed with the light of the gods, surrounded by Anu's radiance. For the Sumerians, a ship would have symbolized divine power, an omen, or a sacred event, not a technological object. Extraterrestrial beings would have been perceived as gods, and such events would likely have become hymns or myths. In their art, the Sumerians often depicted religious scenes or reliefs, steles or cylinder seals. If they had wanted to portray the descent of a vessel, something incomprehensible to them, they might have used divine figures or astral symbols. Sumerian art often shows gods as larger figures compared to ordinary humans. Therefore, they might have portrayed extraterrestrial beings as taller, imposing figures. They would likely have been shown wearing robes, similar to those of gods and priests, but with distinctive details that set them apart. If these beings carried technological objects, the Sumerians might have depicted them as scepters, sacred tools, or divine emblems. The challenge is that if the Sumerians had witnessed a ship landing or beings from other worlds and recorded it, we would have difficulty recognizing it today. What we would call a ship would have been represented as something sacred, without technical details. In any case, no physical evidence has been found, no metals or remnants of alien craft, in the region of ancient Mesopotamia, which today lies mainly within Iraq, as well as parts of Syria, Turkey, and Iran. The VA-243 seal. Did the Sumerians know the planets of the solar system? Among the collection of Mesopotamian artifacts in museums worldwide, one object stands out in connection with the theory of the Anunnaki as beings from another world: the VA-243 seal, housed in the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin. It depicts figures identified as Mesopotamian gods and rulers. The seated figure might be Enlil, Enki, or Marduk. The one in the middle is likely a minor deity or priest. On the far left, a worshipper brings offerings. What has sparked fascination is a small cluster of orbs that appear to circle a central star or disk. Is it merely decorative, or could it be a map of the solar system, as some authors claim? According to these theorists, the VA-243 seal shows 11 planets and the Sun, 12 celestial bodies in total, including Nibiru. Conventional archaeology maintains that in Mesopotamian culture, the sun god was often depicted as a circle, with nearby celestial bodies as symbolic stars. They argue that if it were a cosmic map, Sumerian astronomers would have left more explicit records on their tablets. Despite these objections, proponents of the alternative theory argue that the arrangement of the planets is too precise to be mere coincidence. If these star masters, the Anunnaki, were interested in teaching humanity, why did they leave and never return? Who created the Anunnaki? Could their planet Nibiru really exist? These are some of the questions we will explore next. The departure of the Anunnaki. Why did they leave? Over the course of millennia, obtaining gold was no longer necessary. Once they had gathered a sufficient amount, the mining mission came to an end. The Anunnaki abandoned the territories where they had once lived, including Mesopotamia and Egypt. As we will see later, other reasons have been proposed to explain their withdrawal, including wars and cataclysmic events. Anu, the ruler of the Anunnaki, made only occasional visits to Earth, spending most of his time on Nibiru. Enki, Anu's son, was a wise scientist who created human beings through genetic modification of early hominids. He felt an inner conflict between his loyalty to the Anunnaki mission and his compassion for humanity. Enlil, also a son of Anu, was a commander, the highest authority on Earth in Anu's name. He was cold, strict, and pragmatic, disapproving of Enki's excessive kindness toward humans. There came a time when Enlil believed that humans had become unruly and troublesome. When the Great Flood was approaching, he chose not to warn them. Enki, on the other hand, took pity and decided to alert Zeus Sudra, allowing some humans to survive. This act marked the beginning of the conflict between Enlil and Enki. Some theories suggest that the Anunnaki ships used advanced propulsion, nuclear energy, anti-gravity, or even time manipulation. Another possibility is that they had stations on the moon's surface or on Mars, which served as temporary bases before their final departure. In this way, they left Earth to return to Nibiru, never to come back, at least not so far. These events are part of the ancient astronaut theory of the Anunnaki, as proposed by Zecharia Sitchin. But what became of them afterward? What other factors might have influenced their decision to leave? Nibiru and the Anunnaki civilization. Some theorists claim that Nibiru had a dense metal-rich atmosphere, forcing their ships to use anti-gravity technology due to the planet's intense gravitational pressure. After nearly 500,000 years, once Nibiru's atmosphere was restored, life on the planet continued with greater stability. Because of the stark differences between Nibiru and Earth, some Anunnaki who returned home may have needed assistance to readjust. It's possible they stayed in orbital stations to gradually adapt. Since Anu, the supreme leader of the Anunnaki, resided on Nibiru, the return of other high-ranking officials would have been a significant event. Enlil and his elite group, who supported a rigid hierarchical structure, likely reasserted their control in Nibiru's capital, always under Anu's authority. As for Enki, there is debate over whether he returned or remained on Earth, giving rise to myths of divine teachers. As the creator of humanity, he may have continued imparting knowledge to rebuild civilization after the Great Flood. In the capital of Nibiru, a colossal dome of reflective metal would rise, built to shield the city from harsh weather and cosmic radiation. Some buildings would have metallic alloy coatings designed to absorb artificial light and make use of the limited solar radiation. At the city center stood the Great Temple of Anu, adorned with sacred carvings, obelisks, and massive statues. On the outskirts were scientific facilities, where methods for creating primitive human workers might have been developed. Certain areas of the city contained artificial habitats to preserve Nibiru's flora and fauna, as well as man-made lakes to provide water. Beyond the dome, the landscape would have been desert-like, with reddish rocks and dusty ground, a reminder of the planet's once fragile atmosphere. The surface was swept by powerful winds and extreme temperature changes, due in part to Nibiru's elliptical orbit and variable distance from the Sun. Given that the Anunnaki already displayed advanced technology upon arriving on Earth, it's reasonable to assume that such development required a long evolutionary process. Some have proposed that this civilization could be hundreds of thousands or even millions of years old. Therefore, it is plausible that remnants of ancient Anunnaki cities might still exist on Nibiru. They could be colossal constructions erected with stone blocks, evidence of an early civilization that had not yet fully mastered advanced technologies. The disaster that triggered the Anunnaki Exodus. We have seen that the Anunnaki completed their mission once they had gathered enough gold and their planet's atmosphere had been restored. However, proponents of the ancient astronaut hypothesis and Zecharia Sitchin himself argue that another factor may have contributed to their departure. Internal disputes among the Anunnaki escalated when Enki chose to warn humans about the coming flood, giving them a chance to survive, an act that infuriated Enlil. The figure of Marduk, Enki's son, emerged as the spark that ignited the conflict. Ambitious and convinced that he should rule above Enlil, Marduk declared himself the supreme god in key regions of Mesopotamia, such as Babylon. Such a challenge to Enlil's authority ignited a conflict between entire factions of Anunnaki, each loyal to different leaders. Several battles took place, eventually culminating in a cataclysmic war whose echoes can be traced in certain ancient myths. The conflict reached its peak with the use of terrifying weapons, interpreted by some as nuclear devices. According to Sitchin, Enlil and his faction resorted to this devastating technology to annihilate the settlements allied with Marduk. In Genesis, the Jewish and Christian text, it states, "Then the Lord rained down fire and sulfur from heaven upon Sodom and Gomorrah. Thus, he destroyed those cities and all of their inhabitants, along with the entire valley and the vegetation of the ground." Cities such as Sodom and Gomorrah were instantly obliterated, leaving behind scenes of complete desolation. But the horror did not end there. A malignant wind, interpreted as radioactive fallout, spread across the region, bringing about the collapse of Sumerian civilization. He looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. The terror was not only human. The Anunnaki themselves were horrified by the scale of their own wrath. What was meant to be a strike against Marduk turned into a calamity that devastated the entire region. It was then that Enlil and Enki, despite their differences, realized a dangerous line had been crossed. The mission that had once united them had become corrupted by personal ambition. Anu, the great patriarch who ruled from Nibiru, saw the catastrophe with sorrow and ordered his sons to withdraw. With the earth contaminated and civilization in ruins, the Anunnaki's continued presence became increasingly unsustainable. Thus began the Exodus. Many high-ranking Anunnaki chose to ascend to Anu's sky, their home planet. Others, like Enki, may have scattered or remained in hiding. Who created the Anunnaki? According to Sitchin's interpretation of Mesopotamian texts, the Anunnaki genetically intervened in hominid species, creating Homo sapiens. Yet, a logical question arises. If the Anunnaki created us, who created them? The first possibility is that they originated through natural evolution on Nibiru. Life would have emerged on their planet, much like on Earth. On their own world, primitive life forms would have developed which, over the course of millions of years, culminated in an intelligent and technologically advanced species. The second possibility is that they were created by an even older extraterrestrial civilization. If the Anunnaki were capable of designing human life, perhaps they themselves were produced of a superior race. Did the Anunnaki ever know their own creators, or were they unaware of having been created? The idea introduces an infinite chain. The Anunnaki were created by another extraterrestrial species, which was in turn created by another, and so on. From this perspective, the cosmos might be filled with civilizations continually creating or engineering one another. This line of thought is linked to the theory of directed panspermia, which suggests that life is intentionally spread throughout the universe by advanced intelligences. At some point, there could have been a parent race, but that once again raises the question of its own origin. Who created them? Perhaps a god? From another perspective, the Anunnaki were created by a supreme divinity, an absolute God who brought the universe and all intelligent beings into existence. In that sense, a single creator would have created the creators of humankind. Why haven't the Anunnaki returned? If Nibiru approaches Earth every 3,600 years and the Anunnaki left around 4,000 years ago, their return might have already taken place. It is also possible that the Anunnaki possessed some form of technology that allowed for rapid interplanetary travel, such as stargates. If these beings truly exist, why haven't they come back? One explanation is based on the zoo hypothesis and other ideas linked to the Fermi paradox. Being an advanced civilization, they may have decided that further interference was no longer wise. After creating and guiding humanity in its early stages, they could have chosen to let us develop on our own. The Anunnaki might observe us from a distance, fearing that constant contact would prevent humanity's independence. If their goal was for us to eventually become self-sufficient, there would be no reason for them to reappear on Earth. Another possibility is that, if they were capable of using weapons of mass destruction, they may have self-destructed or fallen into a state of decline from which they never recovered. In that case, they simply would not have been able to return. There is also the chance that their technological development reached the point where they mastered the energy of an entire galaxy, effectively reaching third level on the Kardashev scale. At that stage, they would likely have no interest in contacting primitive civilizations, focusing instead on other pursuits, perhaps even creating entirely new life forms, more intelligent and advanced, on other worlds. Are the Anunnaki still alive? If the Anunnaki arrived on Earth 450,000 years ago and left 4,000 years ago, they would have spent roughly 446,000 years here. Assuming adulthood among the Anunnaki spends tens of thousands of Earth years, it is reasonable to think that Anu, as the father and king, was the oldest of them all. Let's suppose Anu was at least 100,000 years old before the first expedition to Earth. By the time the Anunnaki departed, he would have been about 546,000 years old. Enki and Enlil, younger than Anu, might have been around 50,000 years old prior to their journey to Earth. By the time of their departure, they would have been approximately 496,000 years old. Therefore, if they truly exist, it is possible they are still alive, considering that only about 4,000 years have passed since their final departure. In ancient Mesopotamian texts, gods and even some human kings are described with reigns lasting thousands of years. Sitchin interpreted these accounts as evidence that the Anunnaki possessed a lifespan far greater than that of humans. If the Anunnaki were so advanced, why did they rely on human labor? The theory that the Anunnaki came to Earth to mine gold and genetically created humans as a labor force raises an apparent contradiction. Why would a civilization with spacefaring capabilities and advanced knowledge not develop machines or robots for mining? One possible explanation is that the Anunnaki, despite their high level of development in certain areas, might have had limitations in others. Human history shows examples of civilizations that achieved remarkable advances in some fields, but lacked development in others. For instance, the Maya mastered astronomy and mathematics with astonishing precision, but did not develop advanced metallurgy or complex mechanical technologies. From this perspective, the Anunnaki may have invested much of their resources in space exploration and biotechnology, rather than in robotics or industrial production. Perhaps they knew of robots or mining machinery, but could not produce them on a large scale. Altering the genetics of hominids to create a labor force already adapted to the planet would have been a more efficient solution. Another complementary explanation is that establishing a complex industrial infrastructure to produce robots or transporting such equipment from Nibiru would have been logistically challenging. Using modified hominids as workers would have reduced both time and resources. Some researchers in alternative archaeology suggest that the gold collection had a symbolic or ceremonial component. The use of human labor reinforced a divine hierarchy, gods, and their servants. If the Anunnaki's ultimate goal was to be revered as gods on Earth, using machines might have lessened their interaction with humans, possibly preventing the rise of worship and devotion. Hypotheses about Nibiru, Planet X, a rogue world, or a gigantic artificial structure. There is no evidence proving that the Anunnaki ever came to Earth. But what about their planet, Nibiru? Is there any proof of its existence? In recent years, the Planet X theory has gained renewed attention due to new astronomical observations. Scientists have noted that several objects in the Kuiper Belt, a region of icy bodies beyond Neptune, have orbits that are oddly tilted and aligned. It has been suggested that this alignment might be caused by the gravitational pull of a massive yet undiscovered planet. A giant planet, possibly up to 10 times the mass of Earth, could be moving along a highly elongated orbit around the Sun. According to calculations, such a planet would take between 10,000 and 20,000 years to complete a single orbit. Could this be Planet X? If it exists, it would be extremely distant, receiving minimal sunlight and reflecting almost no visible light. From the ancient astronaut perspective, some have tried to link Planet X with Nibiru. However, there are key differences. Nibiru is said to have an orbital period of 3,600 years, while Planet X, if real, would take at least 10,000 years to orbit the Sun. Moreover, the Nibiru hypothesis suggests that this planet periodically crosses the inner solar system, influencing Earth's history. In contrast, Planet X studies do not indicate any trajectory that would bring it close to our planet. Another intriguing possibility is that Nibiru is not part of our solar system, but a rogue planet, meaning an interstellar world traveling freely through space, unbound to any star. If Nibiru were a rogue planet, its detection would be far more difficult, since it would not orbit a star or emit light. Its visibility from Earth would depend on its trajectory, appearing during certain periods and vanishing during others. However, a rogue planet would not maintain a regular 3,600-year orbital cycle, and the absence of a nearby star would make sustaining life on its surface challenging. A radical hypothesis within the ancient astronaut framework suggests that Nibiru is not a natural planet, but an artificial megastructure built by the Anunnaki. It would be a massive technological construct traveling through space. If Nibiru were a hostile environment, the Anunnaki might have terraformed or engineered it to become habitable, using advanced geoengineering technologies. Anunnaki constructions on the Moon? Some authors, drawing on Zecharia Sitchin's interpretation of Sumerian texts, believe that if the Anunnaki came to Earth, the Moon might have served as a staging base. Another version suggests that the Moon is not a natural satellite, but an artificial object. From this perspective, the Anunnaki may have placed the Moon in Earth's orbit to regulate tides and stabilize the planet's axial tilt, enabling life to flourish. Theories about lunar bases emerged in the mid-20th century, with the launch of the first unmanned space probes. During the Apollo missions, NASA released an extensive collection of lunar images, many of which revealed details never seen before. Alleged discoveries include so-called lunar towers, or spires, structures that seem to rise from the lunar surface and have been interpreted as possible constructions. The scientific explanation attributes these features to optical effects or misinterpretations of natural terrain or craters. Others have pointed to the presence of translucent domes or traces of metallic panels. The official stance is that most of these patterns are caused by lighting effects, low image resolution, or natural formations. There are also claims of entrances to bases or artificial tunnels. However, scientists argue these are lava tubes formed during ancient volcanic activity billions of years ago. Anunnaki construction on Mars. Some authors claim that before descending to Earth, the Anunnaki established bases on Mars, which they describe as a strategically convenient location due to its lower gravity, making takeoffs and landings of spacecraft easier. According to other theorists, Mars might contain deposits of gold or rare metals, which would justify its exploitation. In the 1970s and 1980s, images from the Viking probe revealed a rocky formation resembling a human face, along with triangular mounds that some interpreted as pyramids. It was suggested that these geographical features could be temples, monuments, or extraterrestrial bases. However, later high-resolution photographs showed that these formations are the result of natural geological processes and lighting effects. One image, published by the University of Arizona's digital platform, displays a formation with a square-like appearance and sharp edges. It was captured by the Mars Orbiter camera, which orbited Mars from 1997 to 2006. Are we looking at a construction made by some intelligence, or is it a natural geological phenomenon? On Earth, structures with straight angles are typically human-made, though they can occasionally occur in nature. The Martian surface could present straight-edged formations due to tectonic shifts, erosion, or other geological events. It is also possible that Martian winds sculpted the shape into its current form, although this is uncommon. Since the image was taken over 2 decades ago, the formation, whether artificial or natural, might now be buried under Martian dust. Perhaps future robotic or human missions will investigate it. Connections between ancient teachers and modern UFOs. When we compare ancient myths about glowing beings or objects in the sky with modern UFO encounters, fascinating similarities emerge. The stories of the Inuit people mention lights in the sky and tall humanoid figures, which closely resemble contemporary accounts of extraterrestrial contact. On the morning of December 26, 1980, U.S. soldiers stationed at the Woodbridge Base in the United Kingdom witnessed red and yellow lights shining among the trees of the Rendlesham forest. They encountered a metallic, luminous craft marked with strange symbols, hovering close to the ground before it ascended into the sky. On the afternoon of April 24, 1964, police officer Lonnie Zamora was on patrol in New Mexico, United States, when he saw a flash descending from the sky into a field. Approaching the site, he saw a metallic egg-shaped craft with two humanoid beings standing nearby. On March 13, 1997, thousands of people in Phoenix witnessed a formation of lights arranged in a V shape, moving across the sky. But these accounts aren't just about lights in the sky. Both ancient myths and modern UFO encounters often involve the presence of humanoid beings. Many myths describe ancestral teachers with unusual appearances. For example, Bep Kororoti wore a shining suit, while the Tuatha De Danann were tall, radiant, dressed in luxurious clothing, and carried magical objects. In the modern times, there are declassified cases such as the Talavera La Real incident in Spain. In this 1976 event, Spanish military personnel reportedly encountered a tall, humanoid figure, wearing a tight metallic suit and a kind of black helmet. Within ufology, the so-called Greys are described as extraterrestrial beings with large eyes and grayish skin. They are rumored to live both in underwater bases and in space. While not identical, they bear some resemblance to the Wandjina. In ancient times, the feats of civilizing beings were perceived as magical powers or miracles. Today, the same phenomena would likely be described as advanced technology. Could the beings from ancient stories and modern UFO cases actually be the same? It is possible, but no definitive evidence exists. Coincidences among ancient cultures? A sign of past contact. In our search for evidence of possible visits from beings from other worlds, we have analyzed myths and stories from different cultures. But what if clues also lie hidden in ancient works of art? This Mesopotamian relief, dating back about 3,000 years, depicts an Apkallu, a hybrid being with a human body and an eagle's head. These were protective spirits tasked with purifying and safeguarding palaces and temples. In its left hand, it holds a container known as a banduru. Its exact contents are unknown, but its presence in a ritual context suggests it carried sacred water. On the other hand, this relief from the Olmec culture, which flourished in present-day Mexico about 2,400 years ago. It shows a human figure, likely a high-ranking individual, seated on what seems to be a serpent or supernatural creature. In its right hand, the figure holds a basket strikingly similar to the Mesopotamian banduru. A comparable container appears on Pillar 43 of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, considered humanity's first temple. This site is estimated to be between 11,000 and 12,000 years old, built by prehistoric societies that left no written records. How is it possible that the same object appears in places so distant from each other and from vastly different eras? Historians explain this as cultural convergence. Human societies across time and geography may have independently developed ritual containers with handles to carry sacred items. Other authors suggest that there was an advanced ancestral civilization, perhaps Atlantis, that spread these symbols across the world before vanishing. There is also the ancient astronaut hypothesis, which proposes that the bag, or container, was actually a technological artifact shared with multiple cultures by an extraterrestrial civilization. Another striking example is cranial deformation, a practice where boards or bandages were applied to the head to alter the skull's shape, producing an elongated or conical appearance. In North America, it was used by the Maya and by certain groups like the Chinookan. In South America, it was practiced by the Inca. It also appeared among cultures of the Caucasus and various regions of Eastern Europe. In ancient Egypt, Pharaoh Akhenaten and his family were depicted with elongated skulls, though this is believed to have been an artistic convention, symbolizing status or beauty. Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory argue that these cultures were attempting to imitate the appearance of extraterrestrials with elongated heads. According to mainstream archaeology, however, cranial elongation was a cultural practice independently developed by different societies at various points in history. Similarities in architecture and engineering among ancient cultures. A possible additional clue suggesting a connection between ancient civilizations lies in their constructions and monuments. Many cultures built massive pyramid-like structures, often as ceremonial centers or tombs, despite having no known contact with one another. In Egypt, the pharaohs erected smooth-sided pyramids, roughly 4,500 years ago. In Mesopotamia, the ziggurats appeared, stepped pyramid-shaped temples with multiple tiers, constructed around 4,100 years ago. In Mesoamerica, now Mexico and parts of Central America, both the Teotihuacan and the Maya built stepped pyramids. One example is the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, whose orientation is thought to be aligned with the Pleiades or with sunsets on specific dates. The Pyramid of Colcolcan in the Maya city of Chichen Itza was built on top of an older pyramid. In ancient China, emperors were buried in pyramid-shaped mounds, such as the Mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, constructed about 2,300 years ago. In the Peruvian Andes, cultures like Cairo and its successors raised adobe platform pyramids, which predate the Egyptian pyramids. Indonesia is home to Borobudur, a Buddhist temple with a pyramid-like design. In Cambodia, the stepped pyramid of Kokor, built during the Khmer Empire, still stands. Each region used local materials, yet the stepped pyramid shape reappears across the globe. What led different civilizations to construct pyramids in places and times so far apart? Was this an independent development, or was there an external influence, perhaps from the Anunnaki or other beings? In the past, it was believed that there might have been a mother culture, or a single people who spread the pyramid design across various regions. However, most archaeologists agree there is no evidence of transoceanic travel that could have transmitted these architectural ideas. It is believed that many cultures may have developed pyramids independently because they shared similar needs and worked with comparable materials. In societies without modern technologies such as cranes or reinforced concrete, the pyramid was a practical way to build tall structures without the risk of collapse. Furthermore, the pyramid was often seen as a sacred mountain or a bridge between Earth and the heavens. For these cultures, the gods were believed to dwell above, which is why they built temples in the form of pyramids, seeking to be closer to them. Cargo cults and the analogy with ancient gods. The stories we have examined describe instructive beings descending or arriving on Earth to share knowledge and skills. These narratives often depict encounters between advanced beings and more primitive societies. What would happen if a technologically advanced culture today encountered nearly prehistoric isolated tribes? This is precisely what occurred in the South Pacific, among the communities of Melanesia. During World War II, US and Japanese forces used these islands as strategic military hubs. The islanders witnessed massive warships and aircraft carriers bringing supplies as well as planes landing or flying overhead for the first time. For the natives, this represented a profound cultural shock. Suddenly, they were surrounded by technologies beyond their comprehension. To them, supernatural forces seemed to manifest giant objects from nothing, creating instant abundance. When the war ended and the soldiers departed, the flow of cargo stopped. Some native groups began performing rituals inspired by what they had seen the soldiers do. They built wooden and straw replicas of planes, marched in makeshift uniforms, and lit torches arranged like runway lights, hoping that goods once brought by the military would return. The reaction of the Melanesian islanders illustrates the human tendency to explain extraordinary events through sacred or supernatural concepts. They believed the ships and planes belonged to some divine force. In the same way, ancient people may have encountered beings so advanced that they thought they were gods. These beings could have been explorers from other human civilizations, entities from other worlds, or even misunderstood natural phenomena. Conclusions. The hypothesis that star teachers or ancient instructive beings came from other worlds remains unproven. Most specialists in anthropology, archaeology, and history reject the idea of physical contact with such intelligences. There are monumental constructions and literary descriptions that seem to suggest the involvement of advanced beings. Yet, they can be explained through cultural development, the sharing of knowledge among communities, and human creativity. Archaeology, for example, has found no traces of technology impossible for its time, nor any unknown metals to support the notion of engineering beyond the capabilities of ancient societies. Moreover, archaeological findings reveal a gradual progression in human development, from agriculture to metallurgy. There are no abrupt leaps that can only be explained by beings from other worlds. Instead, there is evidence of innovation and the diffusion of ideas through trade and migration. The hypothesis that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials from the planet Nibiru does not originate from original Mesopotamian texts, but from modern reinterpretations. Texts like the Sumerian King List or the Epic of Ultrahasis mention gods taking part in humanity's creation, but they say nothing about extracting gold to repair a planetary atmosphere. If astrophysicist Carl Sagan had reviewed the claim that the Anunnaki were alien visitors, he would likely have highlighted numerous issues. First, there is a lack of evidence in ancient texts. Any assertions about gold mining or genetic hybridization between Anunnaki and humans do not appear in Mesopotamian tablets. Likewise, there are no remains of spaceships or advanced tools found in Mesopotamia. As for the supposed atomic bombs, neither archaeology nor science has found evidence of nuclear technology being used in antiquity. Although some authors claim that traces of radiation exist in Mohenjo-Daro, archaeological studies have not confirmed any ancient nuclear events. Even so, it is important to remain open to the unknown and to explore the idea of extraterrestrial contact. Yet we must look for solid physical evidence, such as anomalies in human DNA, objects made of non-terrestrial materials, or advanced astronomical records impossible for their time. The concept that star teachers instructed our ancestors or that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials is an extraordinary claim, but as of now, it lacks the extraordinary proof needed to support it. Perhaps the absence of evidence is not the end, but a challenge. Could we be looking in the wrong place?